Hello, and welcome to Masters of Moment, brought to you by Freshworks. I'm Alan Berkson. Thanks for joining us and taking time to explore topics to help you improve your customer experience and more easily delight your customers. I am joined today by Tanya Baker, who is the Director of National Programs at the National Writing Project. We're going to be talking about writing. Needing to sound real is better than needing to sound perfect. I think we'll talk about that. She's going to help us explore some better ways to communicate with our customers in writing. If you stick around towards the end, we're actually going to do a live review of a email template to see if we can find ways to make it feel more real as opposed to just answering questions. Welcome to the show, Tanya. If you just take a minute or two and just tell people, what it is that you do and what's your background.
Sure, thanks. I'm really excited to be here. It's great to be here with you, Alan, and I loved meeting people from Freshworks and their frame around these questions about being more real rather than more perfect. My name is Tanya Baker. I started my career as a high school English teacher, and I taught English and writing for 15 years, and now I work at the National Writing Project, which is a project that believes that writing is sort of the main communications of the 21st century, and that everyone can do it and everyone can get better at it. And mostly I work with teachers who want to be better teachers of writing, but I'm really excited to be here and talking to customer service representatives as well.
Fantastic. One of the things that we talked about when we were getting started on this was being able to give good help versus bad help. And one of the challenges you have in customer service is trying to align with the person who's reaching out you got to understand context and all that. And I want to walk through some of those things, but I think you have a good story that sort of grounds you in terms of how you think about that help. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I have several because I work with teachers, but I would like to share this one, which comes from my own personal experience. So, and I never forget it as a teacher. So when I was in 9th grade, I was taking Algebra 1 and I was working on a very simple algebra problem, something like 3x minus 2 equals 4 or something. And I asked my dad for help because somehow from the class that I had that morning till that evening when I was doing my homework, I'd forgotten the steps I was supposed to take to solve the problem. And what I really wanted my dad to tell me was, how do I solve this problem? But my dad's an engineer. He builds roads and bridges. And he looked at the problem and said, the answer is 2 or whatever it was. And I said, okay, but I need to know how to get the answer. That's the question I'm asking you. And he said, you don't get it. It just is 2. I was an ornery teenager. So what I actually did was sweep all my books off the table in frustration and run to my room, probably crying. But I always remember that my dad had an answer to a question, but it wasn't the question that I'd asked. And it didn't help me do what I needed to do because I didn't need the answer to that question. I needed to know how to do the next 14 problems that I'd been assigned for homework. So that's a story I try to keep with me when people ask me for help or when I'm teaching someone.
I can relate with my own father. It was always, don't help me the way you want to help me the way I need to be helped.
That's a great way to say it. And I think that's one of the things we say to writers all the time too. Don't you know a lot about writing. Don't get caught up by like having had an English teacher who told you, you didn't capitalize right or put your periods in the right places, but really just think about, things you've read, communications people have had with you, and your own life experiences, because they'll tell you a lot about how to write in a way that's helpful.
One of the terms you mentioned to me, which just stuck in my head, you said changing the register. I think one of the challenges that anybody faces if they're responding to someone else's written communication is understanding the context and understanding where they're coming from and understanding how to get you both to a place where you have a mutual understanding of both the problem and the solution. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sometimes when we're helping young people in class think about this, we do some activities like one of my favorites is um, assign everybody a different role and imagine you're all having dinner together and say, pass the potatoes from the point of, in these different characters, voices, and language, sort of key languages. Or another is to ask someone, how would you say that to your grandma? How would you say that to your mother? How would you say it to your teacher? How would you say it to your best friend? And this helps us understand that language use is always contextual and that we actually have a wide variety of ways to write and talk to each other already in our heads, but we might not draw on them. So I was saying to you in our earlier conversation, I am an English teacher and my husband is an IT director. And if each of us wrote a question for technical support that had to do with how our computer was working, you'd probably want to talk to us in really different ways. And one of the examples I gave you was how many times people said hamburger menu to me before I knew it was those 3 lines in the corner. Whereas if somebody said to my husband, first, open the hamburger menu, he would be like, duh, like, can we get to the part that's the real problem? Now, I know when we receive an email and we have to answer it, we don't always know all the things that provide the context, but there might be some clues there. And if there are, we should pay attention to them and try to pitch our help in the right register and in the right direction.
Ironically, I hadn't heard of it referred to as hamburger menu. So when you
Ah,
said that to me, I had to think about what is she talking about hamburger menu, and then you said the 3 lines, and I said, oh, and that
that's
that that negotiation is a tricky thing in
it.
terms of you know, and I think another thing that from my experience in customer support, uh, people generally don't know how to ask, how to frame what their problem is. They're not used to saying, here's what's wrong. They're used to just doing whatever they're doing. So asking for
Exactly.
help is in a language that may not be recognizable to the person on the other end because they're looking to say, okay, here's a problem. I have a whole list of solutions. How can I match one of my solutions or what I know about what they're doing? But you know, sometimes in this process, in this negotiation process, maybe you need to go back to the person and to help clarify and make sure you're on the same page, right?
Yeah, now I'm very excited about this hamburger menu question because I wonder if it's only teachers who say that because they're helping kids connect the visual to something they know. That's so fascinating. I have to go out in the world and find out who else calls it a hamburger menu. But yes, actually, sometimes we do need more information about the problem. And I have to say, preparing for this has been fascinating for me because I've actually, when I've asked for help from customer service, I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about what would make it easier for someone to help me. And now I suddenly realize my part in this communication dance that we're that we're going to do together when I need help.
Yeah, if I could, what I'm taking away from this is before you write the response, make sure that you understand where the person is coming from, and maybe even
Exactly.
take a step to clarify. When you're having a synchronous conversation like we are now, it's easier. I can say, well, what do you mean?
That's right.
And we go back and forth. But when it's someone sends you an email, your temptation is, and look, customer service, we get rated by how quickly we respond and how quickly we
Right.
resolve. And so I just want to get an answer out. Um, and I think that's a little bit at odds with making sure you have the right context.
Right.
Um, do you have some ideas of, from if as I'm a customer support rep, is there a step I can take in the beginning just to sort of take a look at what they're talking about or help me understand or come back to them to help clarify?
Yeah, I think and with all respect, I answer a lot of emails in my job, and sometimes when people are struggling with some product of the National Writing Projects, but it's not my main focus. I don't do this all day, every day, and actually, we don't. And I hope we keep it this way, but for my job, we don't have rate your experience. So I'm not getting feedback on how fast I was or how efficient I was. But I do think taking a deep breath and saying, I think the problem is this. Am I jumping to a conclusion, or is it really pretty clear that this is the problem? Do I understand the problem? Also, to ask yourself, is there anything in here that tells me what the person already knows or has tried? So I don't want to, as I, when I was talking about the difference between my husband and me, I don't want to like jump to a place that's too far ahead of where the person is. And I don't want, if they're frustrated, to tell them a bunch of things they already know. So anything in the email that they've sent to me that can help me know what they already do know or have already tried. Then I want to think about the solution I'm going to send and whether I think that solution is clear, and if there's anything in the context that tells me who the person is, does that help me think about how clear it would be if this person seems more like my grandma or more like my science teacher? And I think finally, and this, you can start here or you can end here, but is there something in what I've said back to the person that makes them believe that that I am important to them, or that my problem is important to them? Because even if the solution doesn't work or I still need more help, if I feel like this is important to you, that I get my problem solved, then I'm going to be a lot more patient with multiple emails or multiple steps than I am if I just feel like you're not even listening or this isn't important to you.
No, that's huge. We live in a knowledge abundance world where odds are somebody Googled it, and by the time they reached out for customer service, they probably tried some stuff, or they probably looked some stuff up, and they do have some context. They did try something. And so at this point, maybe I'm a little more frustrated than when I started. I mean, I didn't want to reach out to customer service in the first place, right? I just want to be doing what I'm doing. So being able to validate that, hey, I understand you're having a challenge, and we're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll do this together. And so you feel like you're both on the same side. One thing that you just struck me, which is, I think, is my biggest frustration, is when I ask a question to customer service and they respond without basically, I know you didn't read my email, or you didn't think it through, because you didn't answer the question I asked. You just answered the question you wanted to answer, kind of like what your father
my
said
dad
about,
yeah that was the big problem with my dad, right? He answered the question, what's the answer to this problem? But the question I asked is, how do I solve this problem?
It sounds like, as a customer service rep, it's worth taking that pause as opposed to the reflex, because our reflex is, look, we're humans are good at pattern recognition. That's
right,
kind of how
exactly.
And so I see a pattern. Oh, you're asking about this. Here's the answer. And just maybe a pause to say, do I understand what they're trying to do? And do I have the understanding of maybe what they tried or what they don't understand? And I can get some clarification there. That's fantastic. I think part of this relates to another thing, which is the jargon, clutter, cliches that we tend to use when we're an insider. Maybe it's a 3-letter acronym, or maybe it's a slang for a particular term. Talk about how to maybe clean up your writing a little bit from that perspective.
When you said 3-letter acronym, I almost burst out laughing, because in my organization, the National Writing Project, NWP, a 3-letter acronym, despite the fact that we are, really pretty expert at thinking about writing and teaching writing, we fill all our programs with acronyms, and we regularly have to reset because sometimes we run programs that run for 3 years or something, and then we'll start a new program. We'll have new teachers come in, and we're talking as though we were talking to the people who are finishing a program, have been with us and have picked up the acronyms, and people will say, who are you talking to and what are you talking about? And we have to remind ourselves, we are working with a brand new set of teachers who hasn't been in the writing project before, and everything that we shortcut to an acronym, we have to say all the words again. So that's, I think that is really important. I also, when we get to the email that we're going to look at, I think another thing is there's a tendency when people are frustrated and we are trying to talk to them to not put ourselves forward, but to sort of to speak either in passive verbs or in a kind of general tone, like it is important to us, instead of this is important to me, or many apologies instead of I apologize. And so there's a kind of way that we can use language to take ourselves, which I can, when we're in a face-to-face confrontation and somebody's yelling at us, that can feel like a great way to sort of bring the tone down. But I think when you're on the receiving end of an email, what it feels like is the person might be hiding behind some kinds of language constructions that makes them less a part of the solution. And that can, for me at least, can really add to the frustration.
So instead of saying, hey, we're sorry, it's I'm sorry, I hear you, I validate it. I hear that you must be frustrated. It's making it a more personal interaction.
Yes, exactly. And straightforward too, I think.
There was an interesting question here. Somebody said about sometimes it's also there's more than one aspect to a question,
Yes.
or more than one question asked. And again, the reflex is pattern recognition. I see a question, I send an answer. Again, maybe there's another pause to make sure that not only do I understand what the question is, but is there more to it, or is there more things going on?
I'm sure this is so frustrating. We actually have a logistics team when we're having face-to-face meetings with people, where we send out a lot of information about what you need to know about the place where we're going. And then the person who sent that email fields 1,000 questions that were answered in the email. So first of all, with all respect for your hard work to help people see what you need them to do in order to help them, that's really important. We're going to look at an email at the end of this conversation, and I'm going to show you an example of a sentence that I think could more easily do that. But I think it is again a direct ask that's not buried in a paragraph. So what I think we really need to say is, in order for me to help you, I need this. Can you do that? Do I need to help you do that? And in the email example we're gonna look at, it says something like, it would be great if you could. And I have to say, on the receiving end of that, as a help document, I wouldn't read that as this is a necessary step to your getting help. I would see it as, you could really save me some time. It would be great if you did that. But I need to understand, as the customer, the most efficient way for me to help you is for you to do this thing next. Please do that. Do you need help doing that?
You brought up a topic which I think many customer service professionals fear, which is asking the customer for something.
Yeah.
Because they feel the stress of, I've got to solve their problem. They're upset. But there's a way to do that. And I think there's a question in here too, in terms of even asking for feedback. What type of a tone or the language? I think you started to talk about a little bit, but I think being able to ask back to maybe we're getting on the same page, or, validating their experience, but I need more information, right?
Right. Yeah. I'm here and you're here. And what I want you to believe is I am on your team, and we're going to work together to solve your problem.
There's another great question that came in here. Technical support emails are often impoverished in terms of emotions. Is it fair to assume someone's disappointment and frustration? Is there anything else I can look at to understand their state of mind better?
That is from a person who has never received a frustrated email from me. Although now maybe mine will sound more like this, because I feel like I'm pounding the keys. But maybe I'm pounding the keys and the words I'm saying aren't expressing my emotion. I think it's really interesting. Again, I'm previewing the whole end of the conversation, but we're going to look at an email that starts with, hello, I hope you're having a good day. I'm like,
Right? No.
I'm not, because I called you.
Well, you know what? Maybe this is a good time, but why don't we do that? Why don't we bring let's bring that email up, because I think that we could look at some of the questions that have been asked and then break this down, because this email is sadly or ironically typical of a lot of stuff. Um, here's a typical support email. I understand you have, hi, hope you're doing well. Good day. I mean, maybe you want to break it down and give us some insight in terms of how we can do this better.
Yeah, so I want to make sure we start by addressing the question that was asked, which is there any way for me to know their state of mind? If they haven't, if it's true that their email has come in without a lot of emotional terms, then you don't know, and you don't want to assume somebody's angry or that they're at the end of their tether. But it's probably good to at least sound like you're open to the fact that this might be frustrating. So I
That's
think
a good default assumption, right?
it's a good default assumption, not so that it like freezes you in knowing what to say to them, or that you think they're going to blow their top. That's not necessarily true. But
Right.
let's assume if they're calling customer service or they're writing to customer service, they're frustrated or struggling with something. So I think I want to say the next sentence is probably the best sentence. Like, my name is, this is my role. So I'm putting myself into this conversation. You know my name, you know what my job is, and hopefully that title of my job should imbue you with some confidence that I'm the person you should talk to and I'm going to help you with your problem. So I think that's great. I think you could start with good day without, I hope you're doing well, or good day and an expression if you do know that they have expressed some anger or frustration or are distraught, that you address that. Good day. I'm sorry that you're experiencing this problem.
Some validation of their state of mind or their
Right.
current experience. Yeah.
Exactly. Do you want to keep going?
Yeah, please.
Through this email? Great. The next paragraph is got a lot of things in it, which might be hard to sift through. So the first sentence is a really important one. I understand that you reported an issue regarding something. So I'm going to state back to you what I understand about your problem. The second part of that, I feel like probably needs its own sentence, and it should, I don't know if the email will go out looking exactly like this, but if I were helping someone, I'd say, like, first say in a simple sentence, which I think if people are frustrated, it's good to kind of have shorter and clearer sentences. Like, okay, so that as I'm going through it, I can say to myself, here's a person and they have a title and they're going to help me. And they have said back to me what my problem is. I can take in that much information and I can nod, yes, you get my problem, or no, that's not it. I'm going to have to send this person another email. But at least I know who they are.
Would you reverse those two sentences?
I
mean, would you say, hey,
I would not.
No.
For me, and again, this is contextual. We could ask 1,000 people and we might get really different answers. But for me, thank you for introducing yourself before we launch into this thing.
Right.
So, but what's happened in this email is that first part of the sentence, which says, let me tell you back what your problem is, so you know that I understand and I heard it, is attached to two possible other things. One is your problem isn't fixed yet. And the other thing is you've had to put in more effort to get help. And maybe both of those things are true, and maybe they're attached to the problem, but that's a long sentence, some of which might be true for me, but not all of which might be true for me. So I would say the first sentence, here's what I understand your problem to be. And then I would I'd take out that which clause and I'd make it its own sentence. And I'd say, And I understand this is the fourth email that you've received, or that
Right.
you've been having trouble solving the problem. And or this problem isn't fixed yet. And that's why I'm here to help you, right? The next sentence is one of those places where I feel like it's really a language move that you could make that would feel like you were more present. So instead of saying, at first, my apologies for the inconvenience this has caused, I would say, I'm sorry for the inconvenience you're experiencing. I'm sorry that you're frustrated. I'm sorry. I would put myself there as a person, with also having an emotional response to your response.
Right. More
And
direct.
this next sentence for me feels very like a lot of extra words, and again, a little bit of distance, at least from the way I speak to people day to day. So I kind of want an email that feels like somebody's talking to me, and I would be glad to step in to ensure it is mitigated at the earliest possible. Like, first of all, at the earliest possible, never, I don't think you should ever say that to anyone, because in my experience, when somebody says at the earliest possible, it means who knows? I can't tell you how long this
It's
will
an
take.
indeterminate amount of time.
It's so indeterminate, right? So this sentence could really be helpful to just be shorter and more clear. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to be I want to help you, and let's do this. Let's get this done as quickly as possible. I mean, that's probably not the language you'd use either, but I'm happy to help you, and let's take the first step. The first thing we have to do. And it's the same. Next sentence is sort of the same. Please be rest assured that I will take accountability to engage respective teams to work together with you on the same. So that's a whole lot of words to say. I will help you, and and if I can't help you, I will bring in some more people to help us. I know how to get, even if you're not sure you do yet, you're going to say to the person, you're in good hands. I have the confidence that me and my team, or me and some teams at Freshworks, can help you.
Yeah. The one thing I'm getting from you, Tanya, is be conversational. It sounds like somebody's writing an essay as opposed to having a conversation. Shorter sentences. Hi, my name is, here's what I do. I understand you're having problems. I'm going to help you fix it. I'm sorry that it happened in the first place. I need some information from you. Can you do this? And if you can't, I can help you get it. End of story, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that next paragraph starts. The next paragraph. Another thing I want to say that's good about this email is, like, the paragraphs do chunk the information in a way that I can follow. You've said hello to me. You've introduced yourself. You've named the problem and your role in the solution. And now you've started a new paragraph. So which is a kind of should signal me what's this paragraph about. And what I should understand in the first sentence is, you need something from me. And it will be great if you help us does not signal that to me. It just says, well, we'd like it if you helped us. But what I think you need to say is, to get this done most efficiently, the next thing we need is this. Can you give me that? Right? Or I need you to send us this log.
It's almost like the person is embarrassed to ask for something. And I think that goes back to what you said, is that it's all right. In fact, it's important for you to ask for what you need to help solve the problem, and you're allowed to.
And it also, I think the other thing that we need to remember is, people are feeling frustrated and a little incompetent. And when you say you can help solve the problem, it isn't so much of an imposition as the possibility that I can be helpful here, that there's something I could do to solve this problem. And it can actually give people a little sense of efficacy in the moment when they feel like they don't have any ability to do that. So I think emotionally, for a customer service provider, it might be really helpful to remember, if you ask somebody for something that helps you solve the problem, they get to feel like they helped solve the problem. And it might actually, it's not necessarily an imposition.
That's when I hear you say that, what I think of is, instead of us facing each other as adversaries, we're moving together in the same spot to help solve the problem. We are running short on time here, Tanya. I know that we can dig into this so much more. This has been really helpful for me. I hope it's been helpful for the audience.
I hope so too.
Tanya, can you tell people how they can, find you, find more information, or or get in touch if they need?
Yeah, the most straightforward way to reach the writing project is to go to our website, which is nwp.org, and like every page on the website says reach us at, and you can send an email, and if it's directed to me, I'll get it within 24 hours and be happy to get back to anyone who'd like to talk more about this. It's been a lot of fun working with you, Alan, and with the Freshworks team to think about this problem.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, look, my takeaways are take a moment to validate where they're coming from, see if you understand what the problem is, and if you don't, it's okay to ask for more clarification. When you do reply, keep your sentences short, keep it conversational, break up your asks, or break up in terms of here's how I understand your problem, here's if I need something from you, and most important, be in the conversation, not that third party, we or us, or more I, and exactly. That helps get you both on the same page trying to solve the problem and hopefully solve it not only quickly, but to help them feel like they've gotten there's a satisfaction, and to in the end, I want to make sure they continue to do business with me, right?
Yes, satisfaction and a sort of personal connection. Like, that person really helped me. I would definitely go back there.
That's fantastic. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today on Masters of Moment. Our next show will be on February 16th. And we'd love for you to join us. Looking forward to continuing the conversation on our next episode of Masters of Moment, brought to you by Freshworks.
Thank you.